It's no longer just about profit. Executives need to change the way they do business to take account of ethical, environmental and social issues. And this may mean altering what they sell and how they operate completely. It follows that business schools should be teaching this, and one that's gone further down this line than others is Saïd Business School, part of the University of Oxford. It's also just been ranked second for open programmes in the FT rankings. Well, let's meet the school's Associate Dean, Dr. Andrew White. I'm Sarah Lockett. Welcome to the Business Debate. Andrew, welcome to the London Stock Exchange studios.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So what are some of the ways that companies need to totally rethink what they're doing, aside from just the products that they sell?
Well, if you think about what's happened recently, we've had the Blue Planet TV show here in the UK, and that's kicked off a whole debate about plastic. All of a sudden, if you're simply just selling your product and it's coated in plastic, you have a problem. We've seen the government spotlight going on to the diversity of gender pay. If you're not paying people appropriately, that's going to affect your pipeline for talent. So we can see how these issues, which used to be protest movements, suddenly are having an impact on how companies operate in practice and how ultimately they can perform.
And how much of business is about these other issues, maybe your energy use, your water use, whether you're funding children manufacturing your products on the other side of the world? How much of it is that and how much of it is just your products, the widgets that you sell?
Well, I think what you have to remember is business is essentially about making money. And if it doesn't do that, then either shareholders or owners of other descriptions will have a real problem with what you're doing. So you can't forget that at all. I think in this world, neither can you forget those other things. And what I've noticed is it's not just about doing the right thing. If you think about what's happening in food and drink at the moment, the innovation and the double-digit growth is often happening in products that have less plastic in their packaging. They're plant-based as opposed to animal-based. They are organic in nature. So that's where the growth is coming from. So this isn't just about doing the right thing. If you connect up with some of these things in certain markets, that's where your future will be.
And how willing are CEOs to grasp these issues?
So in my experience, I think there is a much greater level of awareness than often the public discourse or in the media gives credit for. Where I think they struggle, particularly the ones in large established companies, is how on earth do you change that infrastructure? There are such embedded legacies in terms of manufacturing plants, supply chains. It's not easy at all. Are you going to go to the markets and are you going to tell them that they're going to have 1 or 2 years of bad performance because you're going to transform what you do, your portfolio of products or the services that you offer? Or are you going to go and acquire a whole load of new technology, which again is going to cost you a lot of money, which is going to be risky? The counter argument is you do nothing, you could be hit by disruption. And when disruption hits, we've seen with a number of different companies, that can mean that they are decimated or that they are significantly smaller than they were before.
And there was this chain of chemists, pharmacies in the US that realised they were selling cigarettes and decided to stop doing that, even though it cost them money, cost them profit.
So I think this is probably one of the best examples of a company who doesn't just say the right thing, but has done the right thing. This is CVS, who is the equivalent to Boots in the UK. And they went through a whole process, I think, and the CEOs talked publicly about this, around what their purpose was, and it was healthcare. The problem is you go to the pharmacist, you collect your prescription for a chest infection and you buy cigarettes at the same time. And they realized that was just not compatible. So for me, that's a company that's really understanding what its purpose is in the world and then how do they ensure that the decisions they make are aligned with that.
And it's not just cigarettes or controversial products, is it? You could be a respected charity doing respected work, but you're just not operating ethically.
Absolutely. And I think this is what's coming to light more and more. This isn't just a problem for companies. It's a problem for charities. And in that sense, charities were behind the curve in terms of some of their fundraising practices and how when you just go after money, you can forget why you exist. And I think that's what comes up time and time again, that the job of a senior leader is really to continue to remind and define the organization, what they're there for, and not allow in a sense, the objectives to make money and to grow to overly dominate. And I think that's where you get into real trouble, as we saw with the banks. It's not just doing the right thing, it's actually commercial good practice.
And you mentioned disruption a little bit there. It's not just about Uber, is it? What do you teach about even vegan food, organic food, these new trends that if you're not addressing them, you're leaving money on the table?
Well, if you look at where the growth is in fast-moving consumer goods, It's in those products that have less impact on the environment, are using less plastic, are using plant-based recipes at their core. That's where the double-digit growth is. It's not in some of the products that have been around for a long time. And so that drives your innovation strategy, not just what you want to do from an ethical point of view.
And if we think about protectionism, we think about Brexit, we think about Donald Trump, how much can companies not just assume that they will be able to sell internationally?
I'm not sure international trade has ever been stable. So this notion that we've gone from this stable, globalized world to this unstable one, I personally don't buy. I think it's always been an evolving thing. I think in some ways, if you are awake about what's going on in the world, it can be a good thing. It keeps you on your toes. You're not reliant on markets, and therefore you don't have behavior which is intellectually lazy, or should I say entrepreneurially lazy, inside a company. And so I think the challenge that some companies and some countries have like ours is, how do we get out there and we start to sell? If this market isn't going to be what it was, we have to find others to continue to grow our businesses.
So where does all this leave the role of the business school? It's not just about teaching accounting principles and so on.
Absolutely. I think like companies and charities, we too are having to think about what our purpose is. And for me, in the executive education work we do, we're providing a space for leaders to come and reflect. We're provoking them with the right questions. We're helping them think about things that could be a threat to their business or could be possibilities for them to explore that they might not have thought about before. And in some ways, we're there to disturb, make them uncomfortable, and inspire them at the same time.
All right. Well, on that note, Andrew, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And join us next time when we'll be discussing the latest innovations in the Internet of Things and enterprise cyber risk. But for now, from me, Sarah Lockett, at the London Stock Exchange studios, it's goodbye and thanks for watching.